Hey, how you doing? We are going to work into Ustrasana and Sasangasana. So Ustrasana being camel pose and Sasangasana being rabbit pose. So a really big heart opening pose with our Ustrasana or camel pose, and then the counter for that being that forward fold into Sasangasana or rabbit pose. So as I said in some of our other tutorials, some of these poses are, you really need to do the warm-up. You need to do the work. Don't just arrive on the mat and think that yoga is a destination and that once you arrive at camel pose, the work's done. It actually requires you to go through the process of making sure that you've warmed the body up and that you're looking after yourself, that you actually honor your practice and where you're at on that particular day. Some days are diamonds and some days are dust, and that's just the way we are. Perfectly fine, practicing acceptance, and of course a little bit of self-compassion and self-love, because that's why we're here. So our Ustrasana or camel pose can be one of our peak poses as we work through a yoga flow. It requires back bending, it requires heart opening, it requires you to release I guess your control, maintain control, but yet surrender or relinquish some of that control at the same time. So let's look at our Ustrasana or camel pose to start. So we're going to come into hero's pose, and we're going to separate the knees slightly and then come up onto the knees. So then we take our lovely hands and we're going to place those, and I'm going to turn my back here, but you can see that my hands are on my sacrum, my thumbs are in here, and my elbows. If I have my hands here, elbows flopping out to the side, but the minute that you place here, you can see what happens is that as you place there, the desire to open the heart space, and I'll turn front on so I can show you that again. So knees separate, my hands, my fingertips are going to face up. As soon as I go to place my fingertips just above my glutes there and the heel of my hand, what happens is there's an automatic opening in that space. And so the camel pose requires you to do some hip opening work here. So I always encourage people as you're going through your yoga flows to work into Anjaneyana Asana, and so that you've got that hip flexor stretch happening, that you've actually done some release work in the psoas, things like your bow pose, so floor bow. It can really help with this posture, maybe a little bit of bridge, you can go there as well. Just things that are actually, even your Bhujangasana, cobra pose, locust, so Shalabhasana, things that are actually working into the lower back and giving you a little bit more flexibility and control and warming up the body. I think that that's key to coming into some of these bigger postures. So knees separate, hips pressing forward, hands, fingertips pointing upwards, heels of the hands into the sacrum, and then you're going to lift the heart space. So this is the first part of that heart opening. So as you take an inhale, you can look up towards the sky and gently start to lower the head towards the back of the room. So this might be the first part of your camel pose, and I'm going to turn side on for you here. So my hands are pressed into my sacrum, and which automatically engages my elbows to pull back and the shoulder blades to draw down the back and the hips to press forward. Then from here, taking the inhale, allowing the head to fall back, falling with control, controlled falling as Buzz Lightyear would say, and I'm looking to the back of the room. So this is our first part of our camel pose. Just going to inhale up the way I came back. So that may well be your expression of your camel today. If you're new to camel and you don't have that flexibility and you do want to try for the reach back, simply come up onto the toes. So what this does is it actually just lessens the distance that you have to reach. So again, if you come back into your camel and you have that press happening through the front of the legs and you're opening up through the front body, inhaling and dropping the head behind, as you reach back for the heels, you don't have as far to go. So from here, I'm continuously pressing the hips forward, but in that reach back, I'm opening the heart space and lifting as I look back towards the back of the room. And I'm still breathing. And to come out of this posture, I'm going to go out the way I came in. So lifting the hands to the back body, drawing the chin towards the chest, untucking the toes, and sitting back towards the earth. So I like to stay in a hero's pose when I've done my camel posture, and the reason for that is I like to experience or to feel whatever's coming up for me. You can go into child's pose, balasana, so whether you want to take that as traditional balasana with the knees together, or you can take it slightly wide-legged and just drop the chest, the forehead, the third eye down to the mat and release the hands behind. So that's your balasana, taking that counter, or of course you can stay in hero's pose. So the next variation of our camel, and there are many, and this is just exploring the basics. What we don't want to do is squeeze the glutes super hard, so that's why we work with some of that hip opening so that we can softly and gently go back into this posture without squeezing into our lower back. This posture can actually, release some of that pain if you're opening up through the psoas, through the hip flexor, and you're lifting up through the chest. So feeling that expansion of the heart space and reaching back, you're actually going to create space in that lower back. And I know that sounds counterintuitive. However, if you're going through this process and you are, listening to some of those cues, that will become available to you as you work through the practice. One of the things that we don't want to do here is pinch into the shoulders, which if you're squeezing the shoulder blades together, what happens is as you squeeze, you create that lift that creates tension in the neck. So we want to be really aware that we're not doing that. And then if there is any pinching or any pain as you move into this asana, of course, slowly and mindfully move back out of that. Don't do any solid, sharp, like crazy maneuvers or ninja moves that are going to exacerbate that. Gently come back out. It's really great too if you can get an assist going into this posture, and that's a really great thing to ask if you're in a class with a teacher, an experienced teacher. Ask them to give you an assist with your camel pose so that they can give you any tips and adjustments as they work with you into that posture. So as we come a little deeper into the pose, you can widen, like I had my knees hip width apart, you can take them just a little bit wider, and sometimes that rotation allows you to go back a little bit further into the posture, but we don't want to have like super wide legs here. So when I say so here's my regular camel facing forward here, and if I'm going to take it just slightly wider, I mean I'm not talking anything too crazy here. So we're still in that, erring to the outside of the hips as opposed to direct stacking there. And the toes are slightly more together. So again, I'm going to take my hands to my sacrum, the heel of my hand down towards my glutes. Automatically, again, you can see that press happening. I'm going to take an inhale, look towards the sky. And as I bend backwards and reach back, I'm reaching for my heels and I'm pressing my hips forward, gazing towards the earth as I open the heart space. Coming back out, hands, palms to the sacrum, lifting back and coming back into my hero's pose. Notice my chin tucks towards my chest. So I really am engaging my core in this space so that I'm protecting my lower back and lengthening through the whole spine. And that should actually feel really beautiful. So there are innumerous variations on our camel pose. One of the ones that I like to work with that is a little bit more restorative, if there can be a variation that's restorative, is to stay in your hero's pose and to take the fingertips to the toes here, resting back. Now, I'm not going to lift my hips here. I'm simply going to, as I press my hands into the earth, you can see that opening of the heart space and then dropping my head back. So this is quite a nice stretch coming back up. Sometimes I use that stretch as a counterbalance if I'm doing, or a counter pose if I'm doing some core work. That can be quite a fun little exchange for some of that tougher core work. And I say exchange, it's like you take the core work, you get the stretch. So the next pose that we're going to work into is Sasangasana, or rabbit pose. I really love this pose because I like rabbits, they're so cute and furry, but it really works into the lumbar spine, so that lower section of the back, and it's like a recovery pose where we're trying to get back some of the space through our spine. So there's a couple of things to remember here. We are going to start in hero's pose, so with the knees together. We're actually, in this posture, we're going to squeeze the adductor and squeeze the knees. And we actually want to squeeze the heels together at the same time at the back body here. So I'm going to turn side on so that you can see where we're going with this posture. So if you hands, palms together here, and what you're going to do is turn the palms over, take the arms around the back so that the top of the hands are resting into the back of the feet here, or the soles of the feet. And the thumbs, you can see my thumb is on the outside of the foot. So as I go to do this, I'm actually going to drop the hips back into the heels. So at this point in time, you can see that as I take an inhale, I'm dropping the hips back into the heels, and this is where I start to turn on the adductors, and I start to squeeze my shins together and work into squeezing the heels together. So as I've taken my inhale and I've sat back a little bit, I'm going to start my exhale now, which is going to draw the chin down towards the chest, roll into a little ball, and it's my forehead that's going to come to my knees here. The crown of the head is going to come towards the floor. Now, it's super important that as you go through in and out of this posture, don't look around the room or sideways to see what everyone else is doing, or you know, if there's something that happens. You need to go in and out of the posture the same way you go in is the same way you come out, because we don't want to do any crazy movements with the spine in this space. So, because we are trying to really find that extension through the back body. So squeezing everything together, sitting back into the heels, taking that inhale as you sit back. As you exhale, rolling through, starting at the cervical spine and through the back. And you might actually start to feel that stretch right now. My forehead is coming down to my knees, the crown of my head to the earth. Grabbing hold of the feet. Now we lift and find that extension through the back body. So I'm really grabbing hold of the heels here, and I'm pulling my shoulders down my back body and lifting through, and I'm really giving the arms a good workout as I hold onto my heels. So try not to let go of that. And to come, we do take a few breaths while we're here, regardless of my talking. As we come out, we're using the hands to bring us back, gently rolling up and out of the posture. I'm coming slowly, going out the way I went in. So that is your Sasangasana, a rabbit pose. And you can see then that in your Ustrasana, you've got that lovely heart space, that back bending, opening, looking towards the back of the room, and the exposure of the Anahata chakra. So exploring again courage and vulnerability in that space. And then your Sasangasana, which is the counter pose that we've got here for our Ustrasana, which is opening up through the back body and finding that extension through the spine as you roll forward and create that natural human traction. So you've got the pull on the ankles, or the feet rather, and working through the arms. So I'm just going to demonstrate our Sasangasana one more time. So heels are squeezing together here. We're in hero's pose. Our adductors are activated, the knees are squeezing together. And as you'll do this, you'll notice, you can see what happens is that there's that slight elevation as you activate through the inner thigh, reaching around to grab hold of the heels, resting the tops of the hands on the soles of the feet. Take an inhale. As you exhale, we're sinking back down, rolling through the body. We're bringing the forehead to the knees, and we're bringing the crown of the head to the earth, lifting up. Taking a few rounds of breath here as we really engage through the arms and lift through the back body. And the place where we're feeling this extension,
is through the lower back. It could be across the shoulders. And as you exhale, drawing back into your hero's pose. So, depending on where you are and what parts of your body are tighter or a little bit more user-friendly than the others, is where you will feel that. Some people feel it in the shoulders, some people feel it in the lower back. It really does depend on where that opening, where your body requires opening. So, they're your two poses for this tutorial, Ustrasana and Sasangasana. So remember, always warm up. Honor your practice where you are today on your mat. This is your practice, and it's really important that you take care of yourself through this process. And there can be some really emotional things that come up for you. Again, looking at courage and fear and vulnerability and like the emotional content, but just allow those things to flow through you. Particularly in your Ustrasana or camel pose, where you are, the whole front body is very exposed in that posture. Be kind to yourself. Practice compassion. Check in with your self-talk. Ahimsa, super duper important. What are you saying to yourself as you move through these parts of your practice? Be kind, self-compassion, ahimsa, 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 your self-talk. Watch where you are. Anyway, enjoy your practice, and a beautiful thing to take after your rabbit pose is, of course, a little bit of Shavasana, so you can enjoy that 10 minutes of blissful surrender, rest and recovery. See you on the next video.